All right, welcome back to the final round here at Modern Mondays. We're hanging out inside of Guardian Games in rainy southeast Portland. I am Travis Cooper, hanging out with a lyricist of great renown and talent.
Ian Lunger.
And we're Portland Paper, and we are going to get to see Blast from the Past, Jeskai Stoneblade, 3-0, bow, 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 playing Temur Rhinos.
I can't believe it, Travis. Just can't believe it.
It's making me want to put that back together. Throw in some spell pierces, spell snares, snapcasters, considers.
Show up, go 0-3, be sad about the state of Modern, head home.
Yeah, that usually does make me kind of go into a bad place.
I love how you literally last round just talked about how it was an unhealthy relationship, and the minute you get teased with the possibility of bringing Snapcaster back into your life, it's all it took.
I know, it's like, babe, things aren't working out. You know, I feel like I've set some boundaries and you've crossed them in our relationship. And then when they want you back, it's like, hey, I just, all of the good times I remember, not the bad times.
All right, chat. We're back. We're in it. We'll just cover the match. It's okay. We'll hold our feelings in.
Wait, can we get our little chat pop out here so I can see how we're doing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so folks that are just tuning in, that cool theme song we've got is actually Ian on the vocals.
I'm one part of the 4-part harmony.
Yeah, are you the Portland Paper?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such talent.
But I have no musical genius. That is our composer extraordinaire, Lex Butera Smith.
Former housemate, big Commander player. Currently, there's not a way to get it, but I feel like we're probably going to think about some kind of fundraising thing at some point and have that release because, yeah, we've got we're going to purchase a few equipment items to make the stream better. Right now, we're running on some rad stuff that Ian and I put together, but we are borrowing some really expensive point tilt zoom cameras from my work. Hopefully no one from my work is watching this because they don't always know we're borrowing them, but
we're just waiting for one critical piece of equipment to go down and take us off air, and then we'll come back begging for money, willing to sell the rights to anything.
Yeah, like a NPR fund drive.
Can put this back in 50.
All right, we got some rhinos.
Maybe. I think it's going to get counterspell.
16.
Never trust the blue player who's just sitting there not doing anything with 2 mana. I feel like kids these days don't respect that, you know?
The blue players?
Yeah, with two open mana, haven't done anything.
I think we've played enough Murktide as an entire society at this point to understand what 2 blue mana looks like. Oh my god, 10 tier 1 subs gifted the community. Rock hard. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Wow.
That's very, very thoughtful.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Can we get some PDX carpets? Some PDX carpets in the chat
Hell
for
yeah.
Rock hard. Hit us with your carpets.
That was amazing.
14. Go ahead.
Do we think we're ever going to see any Rhinos tokens in this matchup? I'm thinking no.
We might not.
I love the carpet thing. I feel like
It's so
very
stupid, but I love it too. Yeah, chat. if anybody's unfamiliar, we have this airport carpet that we don't even have anymore, that we used to all look at and take selfies with in the Portland airport, and it doesn't make any sense, but we're still attached to it even though it's gone. Kind of like, wait for it, what a transition. Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, so folks unfamiliar with this card, it did used to be a defining card in the modern format, and you play it for 2 mana. It has flash, and it gives something flashback, which is different than flash. That means you can cast it from your graveyard by paying its flashback cost, which is then its mana cost, and then you can exile it. Formerly, a wonderful way to generate card advantage. Popular thing to do is to cast lightning bolts and Snapcaster lightning bolts.
Goodness sake.
On someone's instep and then attack the next turn for a total of 8 damage. That's quite a bit.
That's that ends the class on former modern staples for this evening. Travis, what is happening in this game?
Eric is desperately trying to resolve some crashing footfalls. Grayson has countered some crashing footfalls, has played a Stoneforge, picked up an equipment, has a big handful of cards, and is currently getting like dinged for 2 points each turn. Curious, I bet Grayson doesn't play lightning bolts. Oh wow. Main deck Mystical Dispute. Maybe we're playing the 4 dispute version of Rhinos. Did not see this in the last match with Rhinos.
Oh boy, so that's Force of Negation, but no blue card in hand for Eric. And this might spell doom. If we're on Eric's side, getting this footfalls just sniped by Teferi it's a hell of a way to go. I feel like you have to tick up if you're Grayson because
you don't want to lose to like.
You don't want to get fired.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure if that works that way, right? Because like the footfalls is the first thing that happens on the upkeep, right?
Yeah,
so
it gets put on the stack, so then you can respond.
But it can't be put on the stack with Teferi.
Yeah, you can't respond to it.
Yeah, so I actually think maybe we were in the clear
That's true.
from damage-based effects.
But also, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure even if that was that is a there's no way that Eric could have pushed that footfalls through. I'm not sure that you would have wanted to bounce Shardless.
I mean, this is very good for Eric, getting to hardcast Fury to take out Teferi, and then, have a Shardless Agent plus Fury on the board is like, that's strong here. Certainly plays.
Looks like Grayson got Batter Skull. That's interesting. Wow. Batter Skull also used to be a finisher in Modern. And Grayson has an interesting decision tree because we do have Snapcasters, and then Snapcaster counterspell is good, but yeah, this Fury is gonna be an issue. Batter Skull tangos pretty well, buys a fair amount of time.
Yeah, I like the Batter Skull play here. I think there's no big rush on Grayson's side. If you can, you're definitely winning the long game in this matchup.
5 to equip? Yeah. 3 to put it back in my hand.
Aw.
Yeah, Rockhart, our benefactor of the evening.
I go to 13?
Keeping the lights on.
Also, Rockhart doing, I think, some rad graphics as well.
If that is who I think it is.
I believe it is who we think it is.
I'm
not positive, but
if that is who we think it is, I am going to be taking the computer home and actively working on making our graphics update a reality.
Sweet, yeah. Ian has some homework, and
Mhm.
it's been in the pipelines for a while, but we're gonna have some pretty cool updated graphics
Yeah,
on
we
the
are
stream.
very excited to show those off
Mhm.
in the not too distant future.
3 counters on it.
All right, Murktide's out.
Yeah, 1.
Maybe it's gonna be a little bit of a problem here. I feel like, let's see.
3.
Yeah, Grayson with the 2 snappies in hand, but no snappy fuel.
Oh,
Teferi plays against Murktide.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
and we're gonna
play.
attempt the force.
seeing if there's a spell pierce in there, but I don't think there is. I think it's just counter spell, and we did not have the extra land. And spell pierce actually wouldn't even do the trick. It's a lot of
Is that
Snapcasters.
three Snapcasters in hand? Holy cow!
I feel like one's gonna get deployed no matter what at Eric's end step to just equip this Batter Skull to.
Yeah, I do think that probably needs to happen.
8. Go to 4.
Is that it is enough
Barely.
provided
Yeah.
provided Eric does not have
Consider.
meaningful interaction.
Oh, you can get a consider out of it too.
It's not nothing.
I feel so. I love. Oh man. Oh my gosh. It feels so. This is so exciting. Is that a prismatic ending there?
Yeah, ending got binned here.
Yeah,
Obviously not
okay.
super useful in the current situation. Don't tell me Grayson picked up so many Snapcasters. Oh boy. That might be it here. Yep.
Oh.
And that is it. Eric is going to pick up game 1.
So that is the problem with a card like Snapcaster, as opposed to a lot of what's happened with Modern in the past 4 years, is that it in fact does not say draw a card on it. You have to have cards in your graveyard that then you can cast with flashback for it to be a great card. Yeah, so it's interesting where can feel very powerful and very heads up when you have the right context for it, but also is dependent on stuff in the graveyard. You can end up in a situation where you have like 2 or 3 of them in your hand, and you're having to wait for your opponent to do something while you're taking some chip damage from some attacks, and yeah.
One thing to be said for it, it does make your sideboard cards much stronger if those sideboard cards are instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
So real hammers in this matchup. I don't know if Grayson's actually playing them. Cards like Flusterstorm, fantastic with Snapcaster. Mystical Dispute is also quite solid.
Snapcaster does an amazing job when you have a lot of very impactful 1 CMC cards in your sideboard in your main deck.
Wear Tear.
Yeah. Because, yeah, just being able to, like, Flusterstorm, Snap Flusterstorm when you have, like, 4 mana is huge. And I know Grayson had Mystical Disputes from the last time we saw him on stream, so curious to see how this plays out. Dispute is a card I would bring in, but it's also somewhat awkward. Not always what you want to see, but I feel like a lot of times you're going to have a counter fight and play on the stack against Rhinos unless they have an incredibly fast start. And you're going to need some 1 CMC counters for their counter spells.
On Eric's side, we've actually have not really seen the Rhinos deck fizzle at all, which is, I think, probably why we've seen Eric do so well, is the opening hands that we've kept have all actually been able to get there and had a nice mix of ways to make Rhinos and pieces of interaction, and have all gotten to 3 lands. We haven't seen Eric kind of get stuck on 2 lands, which is usually the death knell for this deck. Looks like we have at least one, maybe two Blood Moons coming in. Or not. No, we're going to put the Blood Moons. Looks like we maybe toss the Blood Moons back.
Subtlety? That was the card that went in.
Yeah, any of the, Teferi matchups makes a lot of sense to. You just got to make sure that Grayson does not resolve that card. Eric obviously hoping, now that we're on the draw, to start with the Gemstone Caverns in hand.
All right, Grayson has Quick Keeper. Looks like we got Spell Pierce. That's always a card you like against Rhinos. And looks like we do have the Cavern.
My goodness. Just, it's so good to be able to do that. I'm always surprised that this deck can sustain the number of Gemstone Caverns that it does. Just in the games where you draw this and it's a colorless land, in a deck that's like somewhat pip intensive in 3 colors, it is amazing to me that that the deck can get away with what it does.
Also really interesting for Grayson to see a Fury pitched with Gemstone Caverns, because that's maybe making you think your Ragavan's safe, but I guess there was, I think, had Fire Ice there.
What do you think about the decision to fire the Ragavan rather than maybe icing it for the turn and then trying to kind of like land your like Shardless Agent plus Rhinos the turn after to deal with Ragavan?
I like killing it, especially when you're playing a deck that has like 1 CMC counters for sure.
Grayson checking out Gemstone Caverns. So maybe thinking of Gemstone Mine, which is actually depletes counters. But when you get a Gemstone Caverns out there, you just have a rainbow land for the rest of the game. You struck gold.
All right, yeah, so this is dangerous when the Rhinos player passes and you have a fetch land as a control deck, and you want to represent counterspell. You don't want to fetch.
No.
Until you have another untapped land out there.
Well, and here's what's awkward too is I believe Grayson has a Sacred Foundry is the next land, so you kind of have to, you can't blink first basically.
Yeah. I think you're hoping Eric fetches right now, so then you can fetch in response.
Okay, and here we go. Eric is fetching. So do we see Grayson fetch in response, or is Grayson maybe just going to wait until we actually have some action from Eric? I think you're fine kind of waiting. That is hilarious.
I can see waiting on this because you might be thinking about Blood Moon. You don't necessarily want to shock for no reason, but then you might want to depending on what your subsequent draws are. So, yeah.
Good.
No, Gemstone Caverns is a legendary land, so that means that one of those will be dead.
Okay.
So we are going to correct that really quickly.
You played 2 legendary cards.
Oh shit! This is legendary. Thank you.
So that one will die.
I'm just gonna flash
All right. Yeah, so people get this, like I said, people get Gemstone Caverns and Gemstone Mine confused. So Gemstone Mine is the rainbow card, that rainbow land that actually every time you tap it for mana, it gets 3 counters, you remove 1. But Gemstone Caverns, when it's got a luck counter on it, it just keeps it the whole game.
Because you're lucky.
Yeah, it's just a rainbow land for you all game.
It's like picking up the luck feat in D&D.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Overpowered feat. All right. Grayson kind of heads up, like playing around Blood Moon as much as possible here.
Consider spending it.
All right,
Here you go, chat.
consider. I guess it's a red just for iteration. I haven't seen a lightning bolt in any of the 3 games we've seen Grayson play.
That is interesting. Is that a hallowed moonlight?
It is, and Batter Skull is a draw for turn.
Eric's playing this very, very patiently.
Expressive.
That's going to get the dispute.
Yep.
All right, does not leave up Hallowed Moonlight, but represents Counterspell. That was kind of a choice you had to make there. That's why I've never really liked Sacred Foundry in Jeskai decks, especially if you're not like playing Path and Lightning Bolt specifically, because you really want to have like double blue, and you also usually are going to want to have white for like sideboard cards. So that's I'm curious why. I'm sure Grayson has a good reason for having that land in the deck. Curious to hear it.
All right, we're going to play the dragon here. I think it's okay. And there's a counterspell.
Okay.
So just showing we also have Snapcaster.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a great feeling if you're Grayson, that your counterspell worked against Eric, because that means you can resolve this to fairy, probably.
Yeah, agreed. And that's immediately what we see here, too.
And I think it's a bounce, yeah. And when you hit the land drop, does hit the land drop.
Yeah, Grayson has a bunch of angles taken care of here, too. We have the Hallowed Moonlight just in case Eric hits an Outburst or a Shardless Agent off the top. And this is where those, cards like Snapcaster Mage, we're actually going to be able to start to see Grayson leverage that advantage. Once the pressure's off and Grayson can untap with all their lands, this is the point that it becomes really, really hard for the Rhinos deck to take the game.
Yeah, I'm sort of, Hallowed Moonlight plus Snapcaster and an active Teferi. I would think it's a very hard time for Grayson to lose this game. The Stoneforge maybe goes pick up. You cannot do that.
Yeah. It's a fairy. Sadly, Frown. How'd your event go? I saw you up there at the what, 2-0s, 3-0s?
Sadly, is a
2-0s.
known long Monday player who then draws usually finally.
Ah, yes. What an evening.
Yeah, he's a very great artist, especially when it gets later at night. And also did a great job of commentating last week. Was that last week?
Yeah.
You were watching, right?
Yeah. It's, the sadly Beaker team is one of my favorite commentary teams. Fantastic.
This is so much fun when you're playing Control at this point.
Oh god, I'm like as just like over this game as I'm sure Eric is when it gets to this point. I'm just like, can Control just win? Like this is like the old Control where you're just like, oh, this is fun, and I'm like, oh, this is just like, let's just go next. Like, just go next. It's over.
I'm living vicariously.
Ugh. There is no way out, Eric.
We're gonna Snapcaster consider. It's gonna be great. Unless, are you casting a spell?
Start beating down with a 2/2.
I know. I think we might be casting a Brazen Borrower on our main phase. Oh no, Murktide.
Murky.
Oh, I guess then you get to push the Brazen Borrower, so that's not nothing.
And there's a counterspell.
Are you going to also get to Snapcaster Consider?
That is, yeah, worth noting. Ray Day pinball. We'll keep an eye.
Oh, pinball. I've been in pinball lately. There's no Magic the Gathering pinball game. Feels like that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that feels like that's gotta happen.
Teferi doesn't stop suspended cards from being suspended, but it definitely stops it from resolving once it's cast.
Yeah. It stops the important part of the equation.
Yeah, it stays in exile forever. Oh my gosh, Cryptic Command. Those are hanging out in my box.
14.
No, I haven't seen even Archmage's Charm in this deck. So I think we're just on counter spells and then like spell pierces and stuff, perhaps. No bolts yet, and we've seen several games. What? There's an MTG pinball game? I had no idea.
Did they not have it at the place in Portland that has like 1 million pinball?
I've been to a bunch of them. There's a pinball museum here that has like 400 games.
It's like, isn't it like nationally renowned?
Yeah, they got voted the best like pinball arcade in like 2 years in a
Yeah.
row. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was thinking about physical one. All right. Just played the Ragavan.
Good combat. Sure.
And gonna cast the sorcery at instant speed.
It's just so futile. It's just so futile.
I'm loving it. Yeah. Oh boy.
Please take us next. Please, monkey.
2-layer draw.
Take us next. I'm dying.
You're not. This isn't like reliving like past Magic.
This is like the opposite.
nostalgia
This is
for
like
you?
the opposite sort of trauma for me. I far prefer. Thank goodness. Okay.
I could have watched that for like another hour. It's like ASMR for me. There's an even better if you like would play Snapcaster, cast Consider, and then bounce Snapcaster with the fairy, draw another card. and
That's
just-
yeah, that's so cool. All right, chat. We get an exciting game 3. It's kind of a treat for us, you know. It's not sometimes you don't get the tightest matches when you get to the finals. Sometimes it's just a blowout, but this one's been it was good for the, you know, turns 1 through 5 in game 2.
Aw. All right. Gotta get a good shuffle in there. Now check out sideboard again. Nope, just resetting the life counter. Yeah, there was a brief moment when Ragavan came out, and like having Teferi and Ragavan in the same deck felt like oppressive. Times have changed.
Yes, I do think the blue-white divine intervention miracles would be as polarized between the two of us.
I used to love Miracles. Even I liked Miracles after Top was banned.
And I played Maverick, so there you go.
I liked playing at Legendary Miracles. That was my favorite, where you had like a couple Caracas, and then you played like Vincer. That was a fun loop. Vincer and V-Click.
Yes.
And then when Narset came out, it was like, oh boy. Like playing V-Click while Narset was out. Felt so good. It's not pulling at your nostalgia. Nope. Okay.
No.
And that's a mulligan for Grayson.
Yeah.
There's no land there.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that duelist set list was something that I iterated with and played.
Send it on back. Right.
Yeah. What happened to Joe Lissette? Is he still around?
Oh yeah, yeah. He does commentary for the Nerd Rage Gaming series.
Oh yeah, I like.
And occasionally plays. Still sometimes plays Tron in Modern.
Oh God, yeah. I always thought that was very strange to go from like Miracles
To
and like
Tron.
crazy blue control and Legacy. That was always like a little bit fringe to then Tron.
Yeah, noted Tron player. Lover of the Trons.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever been the Tron player?
Only that brief stint where
Oh.
I played grinding Tron.
Yeah, that was
Where
very confusing.
Aspiring Spike got me. I thought it was the next. I usually resist, and I'm like, it's just a Spike deck. It's not the next biggest thing. And then the grinding Tron deck happened, and I had the grinding stations, and I was like, he's right. It's the next big thing. It's taking over Modern. I have to get in on this. And then I played against Travis's like Narset Days Undoing deck and just wanted to shoot myself.
Yeah. That is Ian and I do have a inside joke that whenever I actually get to play Magic, I play against the most confusing deck that I don't know what's going on, but then I end up winning, but thinking they're playing something completely different. And Ian's like, oh yeah, that's Spike's list from last week. You didn't have to be afraid of an Archon. They're just playing like Asmo and a bunch of food. It's like, I thought Persist was coming for sure.
All right.
All right. Yep. We had a Ragaman. It got killed.
Yeah, Eric's got the interaction. Crayson gets to represent. Ooh, monkey.
Ooh.
Okay, so counterspell, no counterspell represented. I mean, we're representing plenty of other pieces of 1-mana counter magic here, but
Yeah, I think you don't do that unless you have like a spell pierce or there's like utter desperation. Like you don't have the third land or something.
there.
Might not be the third land.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. It was a desperation
Yeah.
play for hitting that land drop for Teferi and hoping your opponent is, if maybe you're bluffing the 1-mana counter right now.
Yep. Yeah, you kind of get the free bluff here. I think that is indeed the case. So this is a really, really big turn. Does Eric go for it, or do we pass here?
Whew.
And it looks like...
Are you going to successfully get to bluff by hitting your land drop? Yes, you are. Okay.
Dashy dash. Yep.
Okay. And Monkey's going to run into Fire Ice.
Interesting. It did its job, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Buying the time. Crayson will not be able to cast Teferi here, but we do have 2 mana up. But again, I don't see counter magic in hand here for Crayson.
That is the wonderful thing about like playing these like tempo control decks is you get a lot of advantage from bluffing, which I feel like when the tap out control decks are like the control deck, you're sort of just playing all your cards, and I like the back and forth of like
Yeah, iteration.
the bluffing interaction a lot.
I'm just wondering, what do we have in hand for Eric here? Eric has played this like very, very slowly. And I've expected to see something, whether it's even a Brazen Borrower flash in, kind of anything to bait out interaction from Crayson.
Man, I think
Eric's got to know that we don't really want to just play Drago for a long time. Like we gotta force the issue on Eric's side if we want to take this down at some point before the game gets too long.
I think Grayson really wanted to land off that iteration, and that is, I feel like when you play iteration, you almost feel like you deserve a land. Like when you cast it, you're like, I'm gonna get a land, and when it doesn't happen and you need it, that's such a bad feeling.
Yeah. So Crayson does have a Hallowed Moonlight in hand, but it looks like that is not going to play against the Brazen Borrower.
And Eric is doing a good job of just playing a tempo creature to have a threat.
Yeah, Brazen Borrower looks amazing in this deck. This is definitely a very good home for the card.
Bless you.
Oh, well.
All right, there's a Murky.
And trying the counterspell.
Good.
And this is where the Teferi comes out, bounces the borrower.
Oh, hit the
and
land drop
then
too. That's great.
This is where things start to get really scary if you're Eric.
There is a Fury in Eric's hand.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fair.
I think you do bounce it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I think the choice is plussing. I mean, obviously, choice is plussing or bouncing a Brazen Borrower, but there was some thought there of just plussing.
Good.
Okay, so Fury takes out Teferi. Grayson is going to have to hit something useful off this iteration. Fury does represent pretty decent clock.
Here's the thing about that it's hard, and playing against Rhinos is interesting, is like it's such a better job. It does such a better job than like Living End of being able to just deploy like somewhat meaningful threats that attack for a fair amount of damage, while still threatening that like combo. And so if you have sideboard cards that are great against the combo, like you still have to deal with like a high CMC permanent that has double strike. That's a 3/3 that takes out one of your permanents when it comes down. So.
Right. Yeah, it makes cards like Hollowed Moonlight makes you feel silly for running them, which you shouldn't, because they're of course very good against a number of the draws. And like this, you see engineered explosives, a sword, and a Snapcaster, and the explosives, of course, would be an ace in some situations, and in this case, does nothing.
This is also, I think, just showcasing a little bit how, I know we've been joking about it, but Snapcaster is kind of awkward these days, where when you're playing Iteration, you're wanting to hit lots of low CMC spells, are stuff that you can cast with like 1 or 2 mana, so preferably 1. So like if like Leyline Binding was in the deck, that's a great hit off of Iteration, but you can't snap that back. But you don't have... It's hard to construct this Jeskai deck to play Unholy Heat and have that have Delirium. So then you're left with Path to Exile or Lightning Bolt, and those aren't really great right now. So the removal to deal with something like a Fury in this deck, I don't know what Grayson has to deal with the Fury except for blocking with the Batterskull.
Right, yeah, it is. And, you know, Snapcaster did go to the bottom there, which is quite telling. Take a look at our options. Yeah, it looks like Grayson's going to go with it. Go down to 3. There's a land.
I think it's land for Batterskull is what it was.
Yeah, this is a tough spot to be. Fury is looking so good here.
Yeah, I feel like that was like Grayson kept the land, so
yeah,
they could play
Helix would have
Batterskull,
been great here. Yeah. Your old friend, Lightning Helix, Travis.
Oh man,
taking Furies out.
Yeah.
Grayson gonna fetch here. Probably gonna have to hope that Eric doesn't have some meaningful interaction to get a blocker out of the way.
Yeah.
The scary thing about fetching to 2 is it puts you dead to fire, but you don't always have the option to stay 3.
Yeah. I mean, also you're kind of dead to fire, like tapping one of your blockers as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to cycle Hallowed Moonlight. Brutal.
Instead of playing Batterskull, interesting. I guess he still has Snapcaster maybe consider
Yeah.
as like a block, but...
And end of turn borrower, and that... Okay, so Snappy's not going to get any value, but is going to be able to soak up a Fury attack. And there's a
Nope.
dead gone in
Yeah,
hand,
it's
so wait. There's a dead gone in hand, right?
2 in hand.
I'm pretty sure Eric has a dead gone in hand.
Yeah.
There's another situation. I mean, it's possible it won't matter. I mean, dead gone will play against this germ token as well,
End of turn, I'm assuming.
and that'll do it anyway.
All right.
All right.
I totally zoned out and I just forgot.
There
to
we go.
kill your
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Oh.
All right.
That's
So
it.
Eric takes it. You know, I suppose balance is restored in the deck, the Rhinos deck that is king or queen of the format. Has taken down Modern Mondays. Stoneblade, the Stoneblade erasure continues.
I mean, I'm glad that we actually, as Grayson, I'm sorry for your loss, and I mean that deeply and genuinely. But I'm glad that I got to see kind of the awkwardness of Snapcaster, so I don't immediately go home and then start to pull them out of my box and throw back together a Jeskai deck.